Frank Zappa, known for his razor-sharp wit, musical genius, and relentless defiance of convention, is often celebrated as one of the most unique and visionary artists in rock history, but beneath his eccentric persona and satirical brilliance lies a far darker and more complex story than many fans realize. Born in 1940 to a Sicilian-American family, Zappa's early life was shaped by illness, instability, and an unusual exposure to harsh realities. He suffered from chronic sinus infections as a child and was frequently treated with dangerous chemicals, like mercury and radium, experiences that not only affected his health but also fed into his lifelong distrust of authority and institutions. His father worked in a chemical weapons plant, and the family often lived near military test sites. Zappa later described growing up in a world where the threat of destruction was a daily reality. This dark backdrop instilled in him a deep skepticism and fueled the biting cynicism that would characterize much of his work. As Zappa matured, he threw himself into music not for fame, but as a form of rebellion, expression, and confrontation with a world he saw as deeply hypocritical and corrupt. Though he became known for his humor and absurdity, Zappa's life was filled with relentless pressure, isolation, and an uncompromising attitude that often alienated him from both the music industry and even those closest to him. He was a perfectionist, to a fault, demanding complete control over his music and performances, which led to frequent clashes with band members and record labels. Despite his fiercely independent spirit, he was plagued by frustration at being misunderstood constantly, battling critics who dismissed him as a joke and an industry that tried to box him into categories he refused to accept. While his lyrics mocked everything from politics to religion to pop culture, behind the satire was a deeply disillusioned man who saw through the fads of society and never found comfort in conformity. He also lived much of his life under the shadow of censorship battles, most famously taking on the U.S. government during the Perk hearings in the 1980s, where he became a leading voice against labeling music for explicit content. But even as he fought for artistic freedom, his own life was far from free. He worked obsessively, often at the expense of his health and personal relationships. In the early 1990s, Zappa was diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer, which had already advanced significantly due to being misdiagnosed for years. The illness ravaged his body, yet he continued to compose until his final days, creating some of his most complex orchestral work while physically deteriorating. The final years of his life were marked by pain, exhaustion, and an awareness that his uncompromising journey had come at a brutal cost. He died in 1993 at just 52 years old, leaving behind a legacy of fearless innovation, but also a life marked by struggle, alienation, and a refusal to bend that often left him on the fringes. Frank Zappa's story is not just one of creative brilliance, it's a darker tale of a man who saw too much, trusted too little, and carried the weight of truth in a world that rarely wanted to hear it.